And welcome, everyone, to the Donovan Live Postgame Show on this Thursday night. I'm Dave DiNatale alongside Jim Donovan on WKYC's Facebook Live. We haven't had a chance to talk a whole lot of NBA or the Cavaliers or anything because, well, the last couple weeks have been Browns-centric, Browns-dominant, with the team getting a new head football coach, finishing out with so much excitement. But boy, oh boy, whenever, and I think it's going to be like this for a long time, even after they're done playing, whenever you lump names like Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Kevin Love into any conversation, there's always going to be a reaction. And boy, oh boy, the grass really is greener on the other side when it comes to Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, it's the dynasty that never happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, we relish the one championship, but I think, you know, a lot of people around the NBA, when the big three, the Cleveland big three were put together, it was thought there would be plural championships, and that didn't happen for injury reasons, but also because of, it seems, pettiness.
Yes.
Became involved, and dysfunction within the front office and the organizational structure of the Cavaliers. But Kyrie Irving's having a tough year with the Celtics, and he is kind of, he's calling out younger teammates, and he's doing it in the media, and he's doing it on the court, and he did it very, very vocally and very out in the public in Orlando when the Celtics lost on Saturday night to the Orlando Magic. And the Celtics are underachieving right now, and they're not playing well, and there's a chemistry problem there, and he might be at the center of it. And some people in Boston are weary of him already because they fear that there are a lot of good young stars there, but they're being turned off a little bit by him. And I think a lot of people feel, you know, there's a threat that he wants to leave anyway. So I think that the Celtics, a team that was really looked at to be the cream of the crop in the Eastern Conference right now, has got some major issues, and Kyrie Irving's surprise is right in the middle of it.
When you consider that the Celtics took the Cavs to the brink of elimination last year with LeBron in the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7 in Boston, without Kyrie, did all that without Kyrie.
And without Gordon Hayward.
And without Gordon Hayward. I mean, you know, if you're, you know, Brown and Tatum and those guys in Rozier, you're sitting there going, hey, wait a minute. You know, I know you've won a championship, Kyrie, but we didn't do so bad without you last year. So you have all that playing itself out, and then, you know, as you pointed out, they lose to Orlando. Kyrie very vocal about how he thought that last play should have gone, should have been in his hands. So he picks up the phone on Sunday and calls LeBron James, who coincidentally, with the Cavs playing out the West Coast, is having dinner when that call comes in. He looks, you know, picks up the phone, looks at the caller ID, and says, hey, Kevin Love, who's having dinner with him. Guess who's calling? It's Kyrie Irving.
Right, yeah. And he, you know, Kevin Love goes, what do you think he wants? And LeBron, you know, takes the call, and Kyrie apologizes to him about the way he acted when LeBron came back, and that Kyrie said he admitted that all he wanted to do was take care of his own stats. Which we remember. I mean, there was a famous game early on in that first year that LeBron came back where LeBron just let Kyrie go. It was in Portland.
It says in Portland. It was either Utah or Portland, but you said it's Portland.
And Kyrie had like 32 points in the game, but he had no assists.
No assists.
And LeBron just kind of said, hey, that's the way you're going to play. We're not going to go anywhere. And then it got a little bit better as they went along. And if you remember now, they go to the finals that year, and Kyrie and Kevin Love isn't playing because of the Celtics, and, you know, because he got his shoulder ripped out.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, and Kelly Olynyk. And then LeBron, and then Kevin Love is out, and then Kyrie in the first game against Golden State goes down with that serious knee injury. But they went 6 games. But still, I mean, it's the whole factor of the demanding of the trade, and then just because he demanded the trade, they traded him. I mean, I don't know what that deal has netted them.
It's netted them. Colin Sexton. I mean,
I
mean, to say the jury's still out would be, I think, an understatement to juries. Kyrie's statement, and I want to play a few what ifs here with you. Kyrie's statement, as he says, in his words, he apologized to LeBron for being the young player that wanted everything at his fingertips, and I wanted everything at my threshold. Kyrie always had a phrase, and when I was doing sports talk radio, I mean, literally, I would always find any soundbite where he would say this. It was always about his brand, and what you were talking about. He was worried about getting his brand and making sure that, despite the fact that you had the biggest NBA superstar as his team, on his team, Kyrie wanted to make sure that he wasn't getting left out in the cold. In terms of the marketing and endorsements, Uncle Drew and things like that, and that was a big part of that for him, and he wanted, again, he said everything at his fingertips, because people always forget the summer of 2014 did not begin with LeBron James agreeing to come back here. It began with the Cavaliers at 12:01 on the first day of free agency, going to Kyrie Irving and basically walking in with a 5-year contract extension in hand.
Yeah. He's an amazing talent. I wonder where he will be happy. I mean, now he went out in a preseason PR move with Celtics season ticket holders in attendance at a Boston practice, took the microphone and kind of basically said that he had intentions of re-signing with the Celtics. And of course, that went over very, very big at that time. But then quickly, I mean, there were all these talks that he really wants to go with the Knicks, that he wants to play in New York. He wants to revitalize the Knicks organization. Some people in Boston today, and I listened to some Boston radio today, some people in Boston today, first of all, are saying, hey, you know what, let him go.
Right.
He has to realize that in the pecking order of Boston sports, the Celtics are a little bit, the Celtics have great history, but they're way down.
Are the Bruins ahead of the Celtics
Absolutely.
in some cases?
No,
I know the Sox are one.
Well, I would say right now, the Red Sox, have always legitimately been number one, and then there's been a big gap. Now, a lot of people would say right now that because of the Patriots' great run, the Patriots have really kind of been right there with the Red Sox.
Yeah.
And when the Red Sox weren't successful, then the Patriots were a dominant number one, and the Red Sox were down there. But, of course, the Red Sox had a history-making year last year and won the World Series. But, Boston is a hockey town, too, much more than it's a basketball town. And it's like what I always say to you. I don't know that Cleveland's a great basketball town, but it was a phenomenal LeBron town.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Boston is a great history of the Celtics, but I don't think it's a great basketball town. It's a hockey town more than that. The Bruins have a very, very passionate fan base that no matter what the Bruins' record is, it's very difficult to get into a Bruins game. But anyway, going back to that, I think that the Celtic fans are a little bit worn out on Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a strategy by Kyrie Irving. I really don't know. I really don't know. I don't know where they're going. I think it has everybody frustrated there. There was a Boston talk show today that said, is he calling LeBron because he's saying, hey, listen, maybe I'll go to the Lakers with you? There's a story that he and Kevin Durant would hook up and go to the Knicks. This is the NBA now. This is the NBA.
And it's interesting. It always seems to start happening. After the first of the year, around the time of the trade deadline, you start, as we have so many guys in their walk years, and you start figuring out, okay, could he play with him? Could this, because everybody's got to have their own, you got to team up, and you got to have your own big three. I could see him though wanting to go play in New York. That would make that. For what he wants, I could see that.
Well, he's from New Jersey, isn't he?
I could totally see that.
Really, as he grew up, the Knicks were terrible. But maybe he does. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
He's a magnificent talent.
Yeah.
He really is. But he, I don't know what the method of his behavior is. Like, what's the end result? What's the end run on that thing? What's going on? It seems as though LeBron has a picture of what he wants to do out in L.A. The picture is, we're going to get better. I'm going to get some people to come with me. It's the future of the Lakers, not the now of the Lakers.
Right.
But Kyrie seems to be lost in where he wants to be.
Yeah, he's kind of in that, the basketball turmoil. This brings up some You and I were talking with some of the other guys as we were kind of looking at all this today. You know, it brings up a bitter taste, I think, for Cavs fans and for those of us who covered the team, you know, during that 4-year run between 2014 and this last year's finals. Because in the big picture, yes, they won a championship. Yes, LeBron James did what he said he was going to do. But it could have been more.
Oh, I think
it should have been more.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I know you. I mean, I did months of radio shows about, you know, how great could this dynasty be, like what Golden State is enjoying right now. And the game before Love, you know, had the busted shoulder. They won Game 3 up in Boston in that first round series, and I thought that was the best that team had played all season long. Because remember, you know, they had done the midseason trade for Shumpert and Mozgov and J.R. Smith to go with James and Irving and Love, and it took a while for all of that to kind of come together, and quite frankly, to get used to coaching, you know, with David Blatt. But I thought they really looked like the trend was going upwards as that Boston series was coming to a close, and then on the next day, literally the next afternoon or 2 days later, Love is out for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now, they get past Chicago. It was a bit of a struggle, but they got past Chicago, swept Atlanta, and then Irving goes down in overtime of Game 1. And I don't know, if you have a 75% Kyrie Irving, I still think the Cavs might win that final.
Yeah, well, they might have won Game 1. I mean,
Yeah.
they might have won the game that he got hurt in. They did win Game 2.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's a hypothetical, but I don't focus on that year as much. But there was a bad fit with David Blatt. Mm-hmm. You know, and then there had to be the change the following year, and Ty Lue comes in and they win the championship. But it's after that. And it's the fact that they were dysfunctional after that, and then the trade and how that happened. It just really, that should have been handled better, to the point where he should not have been traded.
Right.
You just don't trade away a player
Right.
like that because he's having a snit.
Right.
I mean, you really don't. I mean, he's got to grow up, and he needs to be told,
Right.
You're under contract and you're playing here, and you still have a championship to win. You have the possibility of winning a championship here. We can go toe-to-toe with them. And, and take your shot. That's all you do, is you take your shot against Golden State at that time. And I understand the Kevin Durant thing was a big, big blow to them in the championship thing.
Absolutely.
But I still think that just because a player doesn't want to play there, sometimes, hey, that's the way it goes.
Right.
That's the way it goes.
And it just goes to show, the strength and the future of a franchise is often determined with, obviously how you play on the court and what happens. But 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long it was from when the Cavs lost in 5 games the 2017 NBA Finals and were denied a chance to repeat, Griffin is not brought back. Irving demands a trade. And then not only do they trade him within the conference for a guy that, yes, he had all-star potential, he had all-star ability, but he was injured and hadn't had surgery and was ball dominant, and it wasn't a fit. And
the guy's never played again.
And the guy's never played again.
And where is he now?
He's in basketball limbo. I
Yeah,
have no idea.
That's bizarre.
The Lakers never brought him back.
That would be the the end result of a trade of Kyrie Irving at that time, probably maybe the best point guard in the NBA.
Yeah,
I mean, when you really threw everything in, I mean, who could stop Kyrie Irving on a drive to the basket? I mean, he was amazing, and he was clutch.
Yeah.
And he could take games over. And that was a positive and a negative, obviously, in the whole chemistry factor when LeBron James came back. But still, there were times that they needed him to take games over, and he did, and he got them, big, big wins. But to come out of that trade with a guy that had a bad hip injury to the point where they didn't even know if he was going to pass their physical test to get the trade through. The whole thing is reckless.
It was. And people want to say, well, who's at fault? Is it LeBron because he didn't, make a longer commitment? Is it Kyrie because he demanded the trade? Is it Dan Gilbert or David Griffin for not coming together? Is it Kobe Altman, who was kind of thrown into the mix and really had never, been a part of a trade that was this complex. I mean, it kind of was an overall thing when you look back at it.
Yeah, it was. I think they thought they could survive because they still had LeBron.
Yeah.
I mean, they had the trade, but they still had LeBron. And I think that they knew they could win the East, which eventually they did. But they were, you could tell once they really played good teams, and unfortunately those teams were all in the West.
Yeah.
But when they really played good teams, they were lacking, and they were lacking Kyrie Irving. You could just say, well, this is a point in the game where he would take over the game.
Right. LeBron gets a break or whatever, and Kyrie can take over.
But I think that there was a tremendous feeling that they could win because they had LeBron, and they could at least get to the finals. And they would wait for the February trade deadline to maybe restock, the roster, which they've done in the past. Sometimes, they've done it and it's helped them, and sometimes it's done nothing for them.
Yeah.
But I think that really, for Kyrie Irving to demand a trade just because he has a personality issue, and for that to wipe out a franchise, at least the championship hopes of that, that's the tail wagging the dog.
Because I truly believe at that point, that was basically when LeBron, in his mind, was like, all right, you know what? I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, I'm gonna play out this year. We'll do the best we can, see if we can have another run.
Right.
But you know what? I did what I came back home to do. Onward to a new challenge.
Right. I think so. No doubt about it. And of course, he was gone.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it that he did not see a championship future here. And it was almost like when he first left that he couldn't get anybody to come here.
Right.
Well, he had it here, but it left.
Right.
And so, and I think he just got tired of having to try and pull it all together here. That's the way it goes.
Well, and
that's why you're 9-36.
Right. It's like, boy, that's when at least with David Griffin here, they did have kind of a partnership. And you could somebody say, well, you're letting your superstar too much into the mix. We talked about that with Baker Mayfield. LeBron's a little different. The NBA's different. But that's all gone. Now the Cavaliers, I felt bad. They got drilled last night by Portland. We're coming up on the deadline here shortly. Whether or not anybody's going to want to trade for Kevin Love at this point because he's not going to play for a while, who knows? Tristan Thompson's name is always on a list, but it's going to be a long ending to the year. And the one nice thing is that at least at the end of this particular tunnel, there will be a high lottery pick for them. Thankfully, because this McCall investigation turned out to be nothing. They're going to have a high draft pick, and that's going to have to be the seed that starts this long rebuild that could, like it did before, take 3 or 4 years.
Well, here's the thing, though. They're boring. Nobody wants to go see them. You don't want to watch them. Their television ratings have fallen. Really. Sign Off. The national anthem being played at Sign Off is getting more people watching their game, watching that is watching their games. It's a very, very sad argument that the NBA is so star-driven, but it's to an extreme that you just get wiped out. And the Cavs have had it happen twice now. But I think sitting around and waiting for them to go through another rebuild, it's going to be tough for people because it's a long, long road. This one could be longer, than the other ones. And it's just it really is. It's a tough thing to watch, and it really is. It's just on an entertainment meter, it doesn't move the needle at all.
People will ask, a lot of times, and sometimes we get it on the comments as we're doing a show and we're talking about Baker Mayfield and how great the Browns are, the future looks. People are like, well, why aren't you talking Cavs? Well, I hate to say it. There's just not much to move the needle. What are we talking about today? Something about 2 Cavs teammates who are no longer here in Cleveland, who haven't played together in 2 years. But the fact that it's a big story because they were here for a championship. But the Cavs right now, 2019.
Are terrible.
They're terrible.
If they were in the English Premier League, they would be relegated. That's the way it would be. That's the way it goes. I don't blame. You can't blame the players. They've been put in that position. but it's sad to watch.
Yeah.
You know, when you do watch it or if you listen to it, it's really sad considering where we were at this time last year.
Yeah.
And in 1 year, you just fall off. You fall really almost like, just out of the NBA. It
Yeah,
seems. You're out of the
you may
league.
as well be.
You know, there
you may
were a
as well
lot
be
of
playing
years
in
when the
D-League.
Browns were terrible, and you just say, it's like we're not even in the league. And that's the way it feels in the NBA. The difference being that the Browns, it's a climb back into. You can do it. You can handle your future better through free agency and because there's this,
there's parity. There's
parity
parity
in
the
draft,
NFL.
and the draft brings things like that back. But in the NBA, you can just get wiped out so quickly.
Right. I mean, you have to. I mean, we were lucky because the second time around, LeBron James is from Northeast Ohio. He wanted to come back and win a championship here. You're not going to get that kind of a free agent to come to Cleveland. Or to any small or medium-sized market. You have to home grow them.
Right.
You have to draft them. You have to nurture them, like Kyrie Irving, and hopefully that person can lead you to hopefully getting another player like that, and then you start to sprout. But like you said, I mean, that's a process that takes years. It took, like Oklahoma City, for example, when they had Kevin Durant when they were still in Seattle, and then got Russell Westbrook, and then James Harden. It still took them 3 or 4 years before they were ready to compete for a championship.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Celtics are a great story. I mean, the Celtics have all these draft picks that Danny Ainge has stored up, and they still have some of them, but they're still not there. I mean, they had to get a trade for Kyrie Irving. They had to get a free agent signing to get Gordon Hayward to match up, and we don't even know if that's going to be a positive matchup. I mean, the Celtics are a really good example of that, how long it's taken to build them back. I mean, Brad Stevens left a very, very great job at Butler, where he had taken them to 2 consecutive NCAA championships, and he took over the Celtics, and the Celtics were awful when he went there. And incrementally, they have grown and become a better team, and certainly a team that's on its way. But you're not able to do it all by yourself. You have to get at some point you have to get a big free agent to come in. You have to do this team up a free agent with another free agent, and they come in. And that's the control these players have over the league.
That's why the NBA is so much tougher. I heard on a sports talk show, and I don't make it sound like this is Boston sports here, but it was interesting. Driving into work today, guys on 92.3 The Fan were talking about Brad Stevens. People in Boston Brad Stevens is not having a good year coaching the team. I mean, he's been coach of the year in the past, but apparently because he's not been able to kind of get this mix to gel yet here, and we're now into the new calendar year. I mean, people are frustrated with the job he's done this year.
Well, I mean, I think that the expectations were so big, and especially once LeBron went to the Western Conference. I think that the Celtics probably said, well, listen, we took them. I mean, remember now, Game 7, 5 minutes to go, they're up.
Yeah.
The Celtics are beating the Cavaliers, and then, LeBron puts on the big show, and they hit a couple of big shots, and they win the game and win the series. And then he leaves, and I think people say, okay, we'll take our role as the dominant team in the Eastern Conference, and we'll get Gordon Hayward back. Well, that's easier said than done, because that was such a horrific injury. So he has not come back as quickly as they thought that he was going to at the end of at the beginning of the season, that he was just going to pop into the lineup and be the guy that they signed from the Utah Jazz. He is not that player right now. And now whether or not, he's going to become that player, time will tell. I mean, listen, in 7 weeks, they could be the best team in the East. I mean, they could.
There's no question. They've got the talent.
But right now, they're a mess, and they have off-the-court trouble. But, tactically, I don't think he's had a bad year. I don't think he's capable of having a bad year. He's had a lot of injuries. I mean, Irving has been out a lot himself. I just think it's a team that everybody had set high expectations for, and they're just not meeting those.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting, and this happens, unfortunately, you can't fight Father Time. For the first time, LeBron James is having a lingering injury problem where, he's always, every time he ever goes for a dunk and would come down funny and be down on the floor and you'd be like going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. He always gets back up and he's always able to go. Well, in this case, he hasn't been able to bounce back from this injury that he's had, and it's, it was, well, maybe it'll be a few games. It's been longer than a few games.
Yeah, I know, and this was always about the time when he would take a week off
Yes.
with the Cavaliers with kind of an injury. But you're right, this is longer, but he's older.
Yeah.
And, I think that, they're being very cautious with him, obviously, and I'm sure he's driving the bus on when he's able to come back and when he'll be able to play. But they're not a lock right now to make the playoffs even out there with the way they're playing. If you watch them play against the Cavs on Sunday night, they're a bad basketball team without him.
Yes.
I mean, they're a competitive team with him, but they're not a playoff team without him.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, so they really, they'll need him. But you're right. We'll have to watch that. But again, this was always remember, he would always take a week off with a back or something.
Funny, until last year.
Well, he took so much heat
Yeah.
the year before because he took games off, nationally televised games. People were saying, hey, this is the only time they come to Charlotte, and he didn't play. And there was a lot of heat put on them. Remember, they adjusted the travel schedule. The back-to-back games became fewer on the schedule, and I think he then wanted to show everybody. I think when you tick him off, he comes out and he tries to show everybody.
When you poke the proverbial bear. By the way, hi to Karen. She says she met me in the lobby of Channel 3, and I appreciate that. Nice to have everybody saying hi. Okay, before we get out of here, conference championships this weekend in the NFL. Who do you like? Two very interesting matchups. As we talked about earlier in the week, the Patriots, the AFC's Lion. They've been the dominant team for so long. Can this upstart Kansas City Chiefs team maybe end this dynasty run?
Well, they can. There's no doubt about it. They're much more talented than the Patriots. They really are. I mean, if you go down the line, okay, they are more talented than the Patriots. But the Patriots know how to play in this game. I mean, this is their 8th in a row that they've played in. They have not played well on the road this year. They're 3-5 on the road this season. Their 5 losses all came on the road this year. But in the last 3 weeks, they have really hit the button, and they're playing well. They had 2 cupcakes at the end of the regular season. They had Buffalo and the Jets, and they started to get their rhythm, and then they played really well last week against the Chargers. So I think that they are ready to go, and Tom Brady is Tom Brady.
Yeah.
But Kansas City is explosive. They have to get the game fast, and they have to get going fast. And they have to get the speed. They have to get Tyreek Hill, Watkins. They have to get Conley, those guys going. They really miss Kareem Hunt.
No question.
And that's a big, big miss for them. When they beat the Patriots a year ago in the opening game of the season in Foxborough, Kareem Hunt had that record game, his first game ever in the NFL. And he played really well in the Sunday night game that they lost 43-40 in Foxborough again. So I think they have to naturally get off to a good start, get their crowd going and everything like that. But if it's tight, I like the Patriots coming down the stretch. New Orleans has got problems, Dino. They're hurt. I mean, they've got injuries on their offensive line. They're not the team that was explosive through most of the year. They have struggled down the stretch because they've been hurt. I mean, they have key injuries on the offensive line. I think if you see the Rams, and Gurley successfully running the ball, and Anderson, who had the big game last week against Dallas, if they're successfully running the ball, then I think Philadelphia showed you how, at least in the early going, how you can beat the Saints. You possess the ball, you keep Drew Brees over on that sideline.
Take that crowd out of the game.
Yeah, which is going to be tough because, it's an incredible place. I mean, when the Browns were down there, it was incredible once the game got tight. Drew Brees, I think this is it for him. He's got to do it. I mean, he's close to 40, isn't he? And
I think he just turned 40.
Yeah, he's 40 years old, and he's had a magnificent year. The bad taste that he had from that awful loss they had last year against Minnesota on the Minnesota Miracle has driven them all year. I just wonder about their health, and I think that Ram defense is really good.
I think people forget about it.
I mean, I'll lean towards home field in that one, but I would not be surprised if the Rams beat them.
Yeah, if the Saints are going to win, they're going to need, Marshawn Lattimore had the big game last week. You look at that secondary, they're all Buckeyes. I mean, it's between Apple and...
And a lot of our people out there would say, what's wrong with that?
And that's wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But I think one of those Buckeyes are going to have a big game, and come up with a turnover or a key play.
Yeah.
in a crunch time situation.
What you really have in both games, you have classic veteran quarterback versus young quarterback.
Yeah.
Breeze versus Goff, Brady versus Mahomes.
Yeah.
Mahomes is fascinating. I am fascinated to see how he plays because he looks like a little boy out there, but the way he throws the ball and the different angles, it's amazing. If the game gets fast, if Kansas City can get that game into the RPMs that they want, the speed of that, I'm not talking RPOs, RPMs, if they can get that speed up, okay, New England cannot run with them because they're big and they're thick and they're slower and they're older. But if New England trenches it out and really digs in, and if the thing is close late, I go with Brady.
I do too. Yeah, they have the that switch that they know how to hit in late game situations. All right, that's going to do it for us. Jimmy, have a great weekend.
You too.
All right, for David Herverton, our director, for Jim Donovan, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thanks for watching the Donovan Live postgame show on WKYC's Facebook Live.